All right. I always feel like a little bit of a grouch here whenever I do this part of the welcome lecture here, because this is the part where we undergo the course policies. There are things that are important, but they always make me feel like I'm a bad cop there. Saying that you will respect my authority and all that stuff. All right. First of all, your grade. Now, your grade is where I am incredibly awesome here. If you look at your grade, those lecture quizzes you take every day, that you simply write down those words I give you in the lecture, they're worth 5% of your grade. So if you're listening to the lectures, which is something you were going to do anyway, I'm giving you half a letter grade. 5% of your grade comes simply from writing down those words. How awesome is that? When is the last time a professor spotted you 5 points simply showing up for class? I mean, it is unheard of in the chemistry world here. Homework. The homework that you do on a daily basis is worth 15% of your grade. Now, I have the homework grade settings set as shown here. I have them set so that you get 6 cracks at every single homework problem before you lose all your points for that problem, right? I mean, how awesome is that? You get 6 attempts before you lose all the points for a homework problem. I want you guys to get a good grade on this homework. Matter of fact, you'll discover that a lot of your homework assignments have a lot of bonus points hidden in them. So I'm really wanting you to do this homework. I'm wanting you to get 100% on this homework. It's very rare that people who pass the class don't get at least an 80 or a 90% or higher in their homework, simply because I have it set in such a way that it's to your benefit. You can always open a hint in your homework questions, penalty free. If you work a homework problem without answering it, you get a 2% bonus. The only thing where I don't let you have those unlimited, those 6 attempts, is multiple choice. Be aware that multiple choice you only get 1 crack at. But you get 6 cracks at all the other types of homework questions. And if you go through a problem once, or if you've worked a problem 3 times and you still can't figure out what's going on, post a question about it, right? See if myself or somebody else can help you out. Also, I don't have a copy handy. I'm looking around my office trying to see if I have a copy with me. Here it is. In the bookstore, I believe it costs around $30 to $35. They have a student solutions manual. That student solutions manual is worth the money. If you have somebody who lives close by to you or you study with frequently, you might want to chip in and go on it. But it's really helpful, and it'll help you work the problems as well. But 15% of your grade comes from homework. So in other words, I'm giving you 5% for listening to the lectures and 15% for doing the homework. I am spotting you 20% of your grade just for doing what you're supposed to do. Right? 20% just for doing what you're supposed to do. Chapter tests. After every single chapter, you have a chapter test. These chapter tests are located in Mastering Chemistry, and they are randomized assignments, meaning everybody in the class will have a different chapter test because they're drawn out of a huge pool. These chapter tests are worth 20% of your grade. You should study for them. 5 years ago, I used to not grade the chapter tests because really what those chapter tests are is they're practice tests. However, I discovered that when I didn't grade them, A, people weren't even bothering to take them, and then they were bombing the exams, and then B, people who did take them weren't really studying for them. I think one of the hard parts of an online class is studying for it like you would a real class, because there's something mentally different about it. You need to study for this class just like you would a real class. My tests and exams are timed. If you're having to look a lot of stuff up on a test or an exam, you're going to fail. Now, I realize that you're taking this at home. And if you're smart, and I hope you are, and I know you are if you're in this class, right? You've got the ACT score to prove it, that you're going to make yourself a summary sheet, right? If I were you, I'd make a little sheet where I wrote down all the formulas I need, unit conversions I had difficulty with, or anything else that I had trouble with when I was working the homework. Oh, that brings up another important point. The purpose of the homework is to help you study for those chapter tests. Before you take those chapter tests, rework any homework problem that you had difficulty with. Rework any homework problem that you got wrong. You should understand everything you got wrong in the homework before you take that chapter test. Also, before you take the chapter test, review your notes. You should be taking notes on my YouTube lectures. You should be recopying those notes in your own words, organized in such a fashion that they make sense for you. So review your notes, rework your homework problems that you had issues with, then take those chapter tests. If you get a bad grade on a chapter test, don't panic. I have the chapter test set so that you can see what you got wrong and what the right answer is. When you have trouble on a chapter test or you get anything wrong on a chapter, see if you can figure out what the right answer is and why. These chapter tests are really graded practice tests for your exams. Your exams are worth 60% of your grade. Your exams are what makes the difference between you passing the class and failing the class. It is very typical for students to score 10% higher on an exam than they did on those chapter tests. In other words, if you take a chapter test and you get a 70 on it, you then go back and look over and say, okay, what did I do wrong on this chapter test? And you're using that chapter test as a study tool in addition to a graded assignment. If you go back and rework that chapter test and figure out what areas were causing you difficulty, then you're going to do well in the exams. Exams cover 2 to 4 chapter tests worth of material. The chapter tests are drawn out of the same test banks as those chapter test pools. So you will be seeing on the exams questions that are very, very similar to what you saw in those chapter tests. So if you take a chapter test and you understand what you did wrong on those chapter tests, the exam should actually be easier for you and you should be getting a higher score on the exam than you did on those chapter tests. Exams I have set generally so that you can't see your graded exam. You can see your grade right away on the exam, but you can't see the graded exam until after the late date for the exam. Everything else you can see your grade on it as soon as you take it. If you can't see your grade on a given assignment as soon as you take it, let me know and I'll go into there and I'll tweak the setting for you. But for exams, you have to wait. A caveat here, simply because I've had the misfortune of having to turn a couple of people in for not doing their own work. I will not pass anyone in this course who does not pass each one of these categories. In other words, if you have an A on all your exams, I will fail you in the course if you don't have at least a 60 on your lecture quizzes. If you have an A on your lecture quizzes, but don't have a 60 on your exam score, I will fail you in the class. I will not pass anybody in this course who does not receive a passing grade, in other words, 60 or higher, on each one of these 4 subcategories. Be aware of that caveat. So if you're somebody who thinks that you're going to try to skate through this class without listening to the lectures or without doing the homework, think again. My grading scale is straightforward. In the past, I've sometimes curved. Whenever I do curve, I won't curve for anybody that doesn't have a 90% or above in the homework. However, curving is the exception. The last 2 semesters, I have not had to curve. People have done well enough that they've generated a nice bell curve. Deadlines, all lecture quizzes, exams, assignments, etc. are all due at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time the day they are due. Also, all courses must come to an end. Now, this date may be different in your syllabus depending on the semester you're taking it. You know, if you're fall and summer, obviously 12/7 is not going to be in your syllabus. There is a date after which I have to end the course. Just like you're under a deadline, I'm under a deadline too. There comes a date under which after which I have to turn in grades. I have to have time to calculate the grades. I have to have time to punch them into the computer and submit them to the registrar's office. Therefore, there is a date after which I end the course. It doesn't matter the excuse, right? If you wait to the last moment to do your final and you're hospitalized, then I'm sorry, right? I have to end the course. Lecture quizzes, we've talked about them in a previous portion. Chapter tests, I think we've done the same thing for chapter tests there. Chapter tests can be viewed as diagnostics, exams, homework. Late work. Let me be clear about this. Late work is penalized 2.5% a day. If you turn in your assignments after the due date, it costs you 2.5% a day. Tests and exams. Tests and exams, you have to email me to let you retake them. You have 3 strikes during the course of the semester. The purpose of these strikes is to account for computer or internet failure. I will reset an exam or a quiz or test for you as a strike. After you have used 3 strikes, it costs you 10% of the assignment totals. No assignments will be accepted after 12/7. Excuse me here, I'm losing my voice. Mastering chemistry works really well. It is very rare I have a student use even 1 strike during the semester. And most of the time I have a student use a strike, it's not just 1 student, right? Something has gone wrong system-wide. So I have 10 or 12 students all having to use a strike and have that test reset. You know, there's a bad thunderstorm, or Mastering Chemistry has a software collapse or something like that. So it's very rare I have a student use a strike. So if you're a student and you're using 2 or 3 strikes, it's kind of raising a red flag for me that maybe you're not telling me the truth about computer failures. If you're having trouble with your home internet for tests or exams where it costs you a strike for me to reset it, go to the public library or go to the campus library, campus computer labs, or McDonald's or something like that, right? Go to someplace where you have more stable internet. Withdrawal policy. I am happy to let you withdraw as long as you ask me before the date in the syllabus. This always causes confusion for people. Let me be very clear on this. I do not have the power to withdraw you in the class. Pumped up the volume there. I don't have the power to withdraw you. To withdraw, every single college has their own ceremony. The first step in nearly all of these little ceremonies is that you have to email me and ask my permission. I email you back and I say you have my permission to withdraw. After that, there's a different procedure for every single community college. You're going to have to do something different for every single community college. Some community colleges, it's really easy. You take my email to the records office, you give it to them, and you're out of the class. Other community colleges, for example, Elizabethtown, requires you to fill out a form and sit through a video. Others are even more laborious. Some require human sacrifices under a full moon while chanting a ancient Sumerian ritual backwards, right? So be aware that withdrawal is often not a quick process. I have set the date in the syllabus to try to give you 2 or 3 days cushions for all the community colleges for this procedure. But to be guaranteed withdrawal, you have to ask me by this date. And you also have to be aware that just emailing me doesn't get you out of the class. You actually have to do a lot of follow-up, right? There's no button I can push to have you withdrawn from the class. You have to do the button pushing. Course extension, I don't give them. If I do give a course extension, 200-point penalty will be given to anybody who requests an extension without providing documentation. Actually, I'm with, depending on your semester, I'm actually changing that to just that statement. I don't give course extensions. You will receive an, I don't give I grades. when I first started teaching, I used to give multiple I grades every semester. Out of some 400 I grades I gave, I had 1 student actually complete the course. So I don't give I grades. If you have a reason and you can convince me like really super, I will give you an E and I might let you finish the course, but I do not give I grades. There comes a point in the class where you have simply failed it or you have simply followed too far behind. There comes a point where life during a class interferes to the point where you can't do the class at the same pace of everybody else. You have to remember, grades have a fairness component to them. Let me ask you this. Is it fair if I give you an extra week, an extra month to do the class when everybody else has to meet these deadlines? Heck no, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. And I understand you may have caught in a rough break that's unfair to you, that you caught mono and couldn't do any work for 2 weeks. It may be unfair to you that your kid wound up being hospitalized, right? And therefore you couldn't do a certain portion of the class. I've had those are both things that have happened to me and have caused me to have to miss things. So I've been there, right? I'm holding you to the same standard that I was held to as an undergraduate. Also, it's a fairness. While it's unfair to you, it would be unfair to the 40 other people in the class if I granted those extra 2 weeks to you. You just get bad breaks sometimes in life. For me, I caught mono my junior year of college. I had to withdraw from all my classes except for 2, and I wound up having to repeat those 2, right? So I've been in your shoes before. I understand it is brutally unfair. It costs you money. It costs you a semester of your life. I've been there. I've done that. But there comes a time when the fat lady sings and the course is over. And I hold to that policy really rigorously. I just don't give eyes. Don't bother asking. At any rate, information on your rights, yada, yada, yada there. Let's see, one last thing under course policies. There was something else I wanted to talk about. While you're waiting for me to figure out what it is I want to talk about, write down New England Patriots. Write down New England Patriots. I hope everybody's writing down New England Patriots. Yeah, the one last thing I needed to mention while you're writing down New England Patriots. That one last thing I wanted to mention about the New England Patriots is how the information is organized for you here in Blackboard, not in Blackboard, in Mastering Chemistry. These dates you see in Mastering Chemistry as terms of your due dates, and you see them also in the calendar view. These dates you see in Mastering Chemistry, those are the late dates. Do not go by the dates in Mastering Chemistry. Those are the late dates. You want to be working off these dates. Every single day, I post announcements to remind you of those things. I have the announcements already preloaded, right? but you have announcements telling you what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to have it done by. And those announcements always match up with these dates here. So if I were you, I would print off this schedule. I'd print off the schedule and I'd tack it to my wall somewhere to make sure that you're working off those 2 due dates. That's about it. I look forward to getting to know you guys. And remember, I am your best source, despite the part of the election